Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditation practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. This week I'll use a pen to get started, and then keep a pencil or colored pencil around, maybe do some shading as we get through the exercise. Switching the mediums up our way through to just let the space of relaxation, space of openness that we bring to the drawing practice give us a little playfulness. Let us try some things out. Speaking of that, this will be a play of forming space. Some simple shapes, working on corners or wrapping around, little connections that allow space after space after space to kind of unfold, fold into the next, become a larger whole, a collection of small chambers linked together that we can explore our way through, bring them out from the paper through an act of figure and ground, solid and void. It takes some ideas from architecture and my influences, but it's really just a framing exercise. It's not about designing anything, only letting the spaces form. Any kind of paper, anything you'd like to draw with will all work fine here. We're just making some edges and then filling them in. So go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. A little meditation on connection and movement in what will end up looking like maybe a little series of plans, but more of a game board or a bit of a maze. We'll start by forming out a little space and letting that space have suggestions of connections to the next one. So something like a little room with a hallway attached, maybe a little square, round, funny shaped, anything you'd like to explore. I think I'll kind of stick with squares, and each one will decide if it has 1, 2, 3, 4, or multiple entrances. Each one will have a chance to have its own shape and form on the page, but they'll grow out. So maybe it's the warm up, maybe a few playful isolated ones. Consider what parts of it are kind of the focus of the exercise. There could be a bit of a challenge of remembering to go for a while, stop, turn, leave a space, and go back. And very likely to accidentally continue over and close some up. So we'll try to keep our attention to that. You can think of it as drawing a series of mostly little L's or U shapes, something like that, that isn't really about making the form that we see, but is letting the simpler shapes form around that form, keeping the emptiness kind of the center. But these little passages or halls, they could happen center of a line, edge of a line. A few could happen on one side. And each time we're working with one, it'll affect how it grows and attaches to the next, changes routes. And then at some point, we'll try to figure a way to connect them all together and make kind of interlinked set of rooms on Enfilade that we can see. It's more of a figure ground or space in the area between. See if we can find something interesting there. Might be akin to a lot of older architecture, masonry-based architecture, where you kind of had to carve the paths based on what the stone could hold or span. But a lot of different ways to draw it. And I think I'll stick mostly to just a simple square with its kind of 4 spokes most of the time, but play with the size, the placement of the spokes, the orientation. But I think anything could make a fun map, and you can always change halfway through. To enter into that, thinking a little about forming space, taking a few breaths and noticing how we form a space in our body, opening up the lungs and the chest, that larger cavity filling out and then emptying lightly. Still some space in there, but it's flexes and changes, sometimes more expansion lower down, breathing into the belly. Sometimes more expansion up high, breathing into the the chest and shoulders. Sometimes we can move that space through the whole torso, letting it fill the chambers and areas separately, being conscious of it as it inhales to the chest, moves down to the sternum, and then finishes filling out all the space of the belly. And then leaks back out, giving us a nice feel of the space around us. As that breath leaves, we can notice our periphery or skin and the way we shape in space. And so here we'll let each body form lightly around the breath and then shape something new together as a larger body. I think I'll start right about in the center, a reasonable size, part of a thumb width by thumb width, just to have a nice bit of room on the page, but not too small to be uncomfortable. And just form a corner of that square that has suggestion of a turn to it. A lot of ways we could draw this shape, and as we enter in thinking about it, perhaps like I started, the kind of two L's making a corner. Could make one larger L that just forms a corner, come back and add the little tails suggesting the passageway somewhere next in space on that empty page. Perhaps really treat them like L's, work around just with the simple shapes. Any way that lets you in, and over time brings the consistency of rhythm, makes it so the mind can stay attentive to keeping that flow of space, both chambered within and extending outwards. But if you do miss one here and there, there's no reason they need 4 entrances. 1 is just fine. We have an end of sequence, 2 passes through, 4 move all around, and more than that, you can have a little fun. We'll start simple, just working around a few, starting to think about where to place those little passages, short L's, long L's, even corners or uneven corners. Testing out a few things and seeing what they kind of create there. Make long runs of consistency, try to let everyone be a little different. The first few set a rhythm, maybe even test how we look at the number of connections to a space, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something unique about each one, setting us up for the next movement. We may even miss one here or there, let aside, be free. Getting familiar with the way of drawing, seeing what we can do with that chambering of space, the holding, the light soft center connected to the infinite page or field. When you feel kind of comfortable with the way you're working with these shape collections, wrapping their way around, you start to bring a little more attention to each segment, finding what that is for you. Again, is it the whole corner, a single L per side, or some combination of the two? What it is, what you find more comfortable to draw, connected to, use that as your guidance for entering a little space for relaxation through the breath. It's a nice flow of inhaling as you find the next starting point, and exhaling to complete a little bit of an edge. Inhaling to notice where the movement might be going next. And exhaling to follow that memory of the imagined movement in one chunk. Or if they're a little short, a little small, maybe the breath carries a little farther, noticing that for yourself, but finding the rhythm in your mapping out of these connected chambers, an inhalation and an exhalation to shape those corners, concave and convex. Wrapping their way around the space of the page. Not moving too quick for a little while, just letting it fold around. But slowing the pace, maybe a little deeper between moments, time of recollecting an inhalation, quiet, a chance to take in some of that stillness forming in each individual space there. The exhalation a little more about action, how action comes dynamically, some small bits that allow us a bit more rest or a longer exhale. Larger ones that require us to use the full breath to track along and maybe even pause at the bottom, a little bit of vacuum. Forming that space inside, or inhalation, the air making emptiness. Forming that space outside, the exhalation with action, making a few little marks. Fill up a little space, slowly gather it together in a series of connected chambers. And the game of the pattern, the board here can keep growing out in all directions. Lots of room to try things out. Longer rooms, broader corners, wider narrow passageways. Sneaky ones that move around existing areas, starting to break up the regularity. Nice, neat ones that fit in between, all guided by that inhalation. A chance for setting a direction and tracking it along with the exhalation. As you take a few minutes to draw the same patterns, to focus inward on that breath. Listen to the space between each action. And start to fill out that page to see where it takes you, the endless connecting. Emerges perhaps a little rhythm to the drawing, but again, a dynamic rhythm driven by the dynamic fluctuation of our breath cycles, we can always bring some guidance to them, even regularize them a bit with some counting, or deeper attention. They're left on their own, even with the guidance of the hand. They're going to tend to move a little faster, a little slower, to move with the drawing action, or sometimes completely independent of it. And we use that attention and mindful presence to see if we can bring them a little closer together for a little while. And then let the strangeness, anomalies of speed and attention open up new opportunities on the paper. Long corridors, narrow wraparounds, near misses or dead ends. Not getting enough there on the page, the things may start to look like something. Maybe we see the potential of a floor plan, perhaps. Maybe we just see the interesting little figures and shapes that form between each moment. If you're working in a more rectangular grid, they'll have a more rectilinear shape, slight fluctuations and oddities as they move in and out, flex wide or narrow. We get little jumps, kinks, twists all around the space. You're working in more irregular shapes. They may open up even more complex intersections, the places between the space. You can start to think of those spaces in other ways, perhaps bringing some closure to the whole. Feel free to add new chambers at any time. Start looking around the exterior, closing off some edges, seeing the shapes form, maybe even playing with some of the visual language of these kind of intersecting back-to-back L's or T's or corners. Letting them be suggestions of something farther along, but also a completion of something there on the paper. Wrapping a corner with a solid, terminating a trajectory, leaving a door open to the outside of the paper. As you work your way around the exterior or through the interior, finding other moments, possible enclosure, noticing a few strange anomalies here and there. Missed something, filled something in that should have been left open. You'll come back and see ways of engaging it, bringing it into the whole. Those moments getting lost in the drawing. And once we see the figure in the ground, the solids forming around the more open spaces, we bring other readings to them. Give them some thickness. Give them some fill or poche and start to see a clearer distinction between in and out. So I think we'll switch to a pencil just to have a little more flexibility and start to give these shapes more variation, differentiation, bringing a little shade either to the space or to the smaller shapes between them. Thinking of these maybe like walls or little bumps that separate one area from another, with a small passage between. Changing the mode of the drawing now that a whole world starts to exist. Changing the mode that we can see in as we change to a medium. The pen will work here too, but shade or fill and tone instead of line, contour, and edge. Noticing the bobbles of the hand or the precise straight edges, depending on how you're drawn or drawn. They bring a different feel to the shape as the shape becomes full, its outline less of a distinction of in or out or holding in material. That whole material, the solid, forming the space around it, some closed in like chambers, little rooms connected, some open to the exterior, the light edge, bump. Let the mind can just follow each shape, getting to know it in another way, but filling in, tracking its edges, tracking its orientation, horizontal and vertical, in my case, or any orientation when it comes to how you decided to form the spaces. The offsets and connections of the regularity or irregularity, little passageways between spaces, changing each divider into a unique figure. Figures gathering on the ground of the page there. Figures slowly shaping the relationship between solid and void. And perhaps these figures slowly bringing more awareness to the space, potential movement to the space. We could even at some point begin to imagine flow through there, taking a path, choosing a way to move, meandering through the not quite maze, and slipping out again. A near infinite series of forking paths. One to get lost in, and surprised by as you find an edge and suddenly vanish out into the paper space. And spend a couple of minutes just shading, enjoying moving the hand in a different way, bringing those heavier solids out of the page, letting that space really form between them. And as we may practice any creative act, whether we think of it as art, design, or just a release, a relaxing thing to do, keeping the hands busy or the mind active, many ways to approach it. It's fun to think about how that medium, whether it's the direct thing, the pen, the pencil, the paper, or the interaction and the time spent working with it, can bring some nice change of pace to things. Talking to my friend who was sharing some of his just for fun personal artwork, a hobby to find relaxation, one of his most interesting comments was in using the oil pastel as kind of the primary medium to work with. Gets all over your hands, makes a big mess, and you really just can't pick up your phone for a while. Or deal with something unless you really have to, because you have to clean up and now you're stopped. Having something there that absorbs you, maybe even makes a little bit of a challenge to shifting modes. And open that space, have that time, just play, learn, and maybe work eventually towards something that takes a shape. You, as a creator, or shape for you, as a person. As we're approaching the half-hour mark, might be plenty more shapes to shade, more opportunities to extend space. I'm really interested in the opportunities of letting a pencil, or maybe a series of colored pencils, play, track trajectories, move around, just explore what's in between each solid. See if I can make some complexity form in the nice softness of the simple open spaces. Perhaps you like to let it follow through, let each one become complete, define that whole relationship between solid, void, open, and framing. I encourage to continue on with it. If you have the time, you need to close it down. If there's a nice, relaxing, attainable kind of end or completion to the exercise, a nice exercise to the hand, to the eye, to the mind. Or if there's a lot more to go, you have things to do, just bring it to a close. Finish out one shape. Know the others are there if you ever want to come back. Take a step away, physically or just figuratively there, looking out over the whole, letting your eyes dance a little bit between the spaces and the solids that hold them. Maybe the space holds the solids floating just apart from each other. If you're closing out, take a couple of deep breaths. The shoulders roll back a little bit, down a little bit. If you want to keep drawing, then let the hand keep moving. Take your exercise to its completion. Remember to take a few of those breaths, even if you're still working. Don't get too caught up. Sometimes the form or technique, that application of the simple L shape, or wrapping a corner to wrap a corner in the other way, a kind of inflection or zigzag, seems straightforward, seems a simple thing to keep the mind on, to follow along, just one after the other. But then we get maybe bored, maybe we get distracted, maybe we get a little absorbed in what it can really do when we start to play, start to think, start to manipulate a little bit what's going on, and then suddenly we can get a little lost, and you find spaces like I did through Anomaly that we come back into maybe later and turn into something interesting. But we try to keep on track. That mindfulness practice is always a gentle reminder that I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm here, present. We drift away from time to time, we drift back, quickly realign. No reason to worry about it, just to notice and say, that's interesting, I find myself moving a little over here, I'm gonna gently move a little back here, and take time in that time to be present with it, so we can do a little bit more of that wherever we are in life. I hope you found something interesting in your collection of chambers, and if you enjoyed the exercise, give it a thumbs up below, share with your friends, and come back every week for new explorations of mindful drawing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, and draw well. Thank you.